All right, hey everyone, it's Wicked New England. I'm here, I'm John. This is Andrew, Anthony. Let's get started with the show. So, for episode 3, we wanted to start off with a little icebreaker. What is our favorite TV shows? Now, I think I know what everyone's is, but let's start off with Anthony.
Miami Vice, 1980s. Everybody loves a nice Ferrari, beautiful women, and of course it
Killer
was the
soundtrack.
80s. Great music. Everybody remembers "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins. But yeah, that would probably have to be my number one hit for TV shows. Andrew?
So my number one, Miami Vice is definitely in my top 3 too, so this one kind of hurts a little bit. But my number one, always going to be The Sopranos. In addition to being an avid horror lover, I love everything mafia related, from Goodfellas, Casino, you name it, I've seen it, I own it. Definitely my favorite genre, like when it comes to movies and so forth. But Tony Soprano, he's the man, right? One of the best leading characters ever in any TV show. And honestly, I can't say enough about that show. I just feel like it's perfectly done. For me, I've gone back and rewatched it at least twice all the way through each year since it came out. And it did come out in '99, so let's put the math on that, right? I've watched The Sopranos a lot of times. I've introduced it to a lot of people, and they've grown to love it as well. Come hell or high water, I'm going to get both these guys to watch the whole show as well. And I promise you, they're probably going to love it too. John, what's yours?
Funny you
I
say
gotta
Sopranos. That is probably going to end up being the next TV show that I watch that's like new to me. However, I saw my favorite show get re-added to Netflix, How I Met Your Mother. Now, most of the shows I watch are not sitcoms. I have watched my fair share of sitcoms. However, something about How I Met Your Mother it's my favorite show. It's my comfort show. It's what I watch whether I'm happy, sad. At this point, I can just flop around to whatever episode I want to watch. So,
And just because I love falling on the sword, and this definitely wasn't in the script whatsoever, what's your favorite guilty pleasure show? So this is one that like you don't really tell your friends about because they might make fun of you, because maybe it's a little too sappy, maybe it's a little too, I don't know, whatever the case is. What's that guilty pleasure show that you watch but you don't really tell nobody about?
I feel like I've told a lot of people about it, but not everyone. Naruto. I
Alright.
love Naruto.
Hey, afternoon cartoons were great, all right? Everybody's got that one cartoon they go back to. I mean, so in Naruto, at least you got some martial arts in there, and
Actually,
some fighting.
I know my guilty pleasure show, my actual
He's
one.
changing his mind already. We're 30 seconds in,
Yeah, well,
3 minutes in. My bad.
Adventure Time.
Ooh.
I love Adventure Time. I'm actually rewatching it with my girlfriend. This is her first watch through. My probably third. Love Adventure Time.
Raise your hands if you love Adult Swim. Anthony, how about you? What's your guilty pleasure show?
Probably Married with Children.
All right. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. Al Bundy was great. That man was a hero.
He was a hero indeed.
Probably couldn't get away with half of that crap on TV nowadays, but it's still great to go back and rewatch all those old classics. So I'm gonna throw myself on the sword right now. Okay, probably more of like a chick flick type show. Not to label anybody.
Sex in the City.
No, although I do
Thank
own
God.
the complete series on DVD. I do watch that with the significant other from time to time. But my guilty pleasure show is actually Dawson's Creek, of all things. So who remembers all those times in high school, right? Being an angsty teen, woe is me, all the girl troubles that you thought were big at the time, but really are nothing now. Anyway, so that's it for me. Dawson's Creek, definitely the guilty pleasure show. I also watch Grey's Anatomy too, which I guess that's also a falling on the sword a little bit. But medical dramas in general, I kind of got a thing for. But enough about that. Let's steer this back on topic. So, John, what would you have in mind for this show?
So today, we wanted to get back into that Wicked New England vibe and talk about some haunted objects.
Ooh.
So, haunted objects, that's something that we've seen movies made about them, we've seen them in museums, we've heard all about them. Probably the most famous one I would have to say is the Annabelle doll. They have multiple movies made about it. I know in the movies, they chose to do a different doll than the actual Annabelle doll. Ed and Lorraine Warren's museum has the actual doll.
Yeah, that's definitely on my bucket list of places I would love to have seen. I actually hear it's not really in business anymore, that they're not really allowing tours anymore,
Oh,
which
wow.
I feel is a shame, but I'm hoping that eventually that might change. Maybe if it's under different ownership or so forth. Obviously with Ed and Lorraine Warren being gone, went to the Sun, and I believe people were actually breaking in at one point, so they had to shut down the museum. I would love to check that out. It was open for a while, so that's something I'll definitely look into in the future to see if it's a possibility. Who's actually seen like a haunted object or a cursed object, like say somewhat up close? Have either of you guys actually, seen something like that?
See, I can't really say that it was a haunted object, but
Okay.
I'll never forget. I don't know if I can get the footage because it belongs to my friend. Maybe, maybe not. But back in the day when we were just messing around in his house, he had this mask that he said creeped him out to no end. It was a creepy mask, but I didn't really think anything of it. So what he did was he wanted to get film footage of this mask in his basement, because his basement he said was haunted. The mask he thought was haunted. It's supposedly moved on its own. Now, me being the person I am, I want proof. Yeah, sure, I'll help you out with recording it. So we set up the camera. We set up these 2 bins. I made sure that thing wasn't falling over because flat floor, we put the mask on top facing the camera. Right as we're walking out, both bins just fell over. So, as you do as investigators, we sprinted up the stairs and did not go back down for another 45 minutes.
Well, when the Hershey starts coming out, you get a little spooked, and I think you want to stay away. So you know what? That's a normal reaction, guys. Not all of us are running into the burning building when we're when we're a little younger, when we're face to face with that fear.
I will say I don't know that it's a cursed object. I would have to investigate that house, but that's something that we had experienced. And if I can get the video footage, then that would be cool. If not, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, that would definitely be cool. I mean, I for sure want to check that out.
From years ago.
So if we need to go Tony Soprano on your friend to get that footage, I'm with you. I'm down for the cause. I'm down for the cause. Anthony, how about you? You ever been around anything like that? Or, I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a cursed object.
I don't think I have. I know I've been around some things that kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies, so to speak. Or maybe not just that, but just a bad vibe. Something that you're just uncomfortable being around.
Kind of like in-laws.
Well, in some ways, yes. But yeah, there.
I do too, for the record, but it's just a joke.
And I'm single, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah.
You heard it, ladies. Most eligible bachelor, right over here.
But yeah, there's some objects that I've been around. Some that I'm not going to talk about, but I can understand the heebie-jeebies or bad vibe aspect. Haunted or possessed, or however you want to call it. That's definitely something I would be interested in investigating.
Yeah, 100%. Anything that's gonna make our skin crawl a little bit, I'm always open to investigate. Within good reason. Obviously, we all have our fears. We all have things that are kind of hard-nosed for us. Fortunately, within this group, I can say I don't think there's actually a lot. So that's good for you guys, the viewer, because that points to lots of great content, because we're willing to go where we're uncomfortable going. But as far as witnessing an actual haunted object, the closest I can say I got, as I said in the previous episode, I spent a lot of time in Florida. So while vacationing in Key West, I actually got to encounter the real Robert the Doll. Which isn't quite as popular as Annabelle, or sensationalized, I should say. Not popular. It might not be the right word. But and supposedly, as the story goes, or the legend I should say, if you take a picture with the doll, supposedly you're cursed for life. Now, I haven't experienced any bad luck, but I did take a picture with Robert the Doll. I'm on the fence if I should show it or not. The devil on my shoulder, to your right, my left, thinks I should. Whereas
Very
Anthony
much so.
thinks it'd be much smarter if I did not. So we'll see how that goes, folks. Let me know in the comments below if that's something you'd really like to see, that selfie. I will absolutely dig it out, and I'll get it back up on the screen for you.
Just a note, you already did the hard part. You took the picture. You took the picture. If you show it off, what, are you going to get double cursed? Then it cancels out. You're fine.
You know,
Sometimes
I don't like him, but he's making a lot of sense.
Plus, you're already cursed. You met us.
This is true. Do you know what it's like having these guys as your co-hosts? I mean,
This one
anyway,
can't stop talking, and I don't talk at all.
that's what I like about you. Moving on. Hey, John, why don't you steer us back on topic? Because I think we've gotten off course just a little bit again.
So one thing that we had been talking about off camera was paranormal theories. Like, for example, a haunted location. Maybe something happened there that scarred the location, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Now, one way that I had it explained to me was the frequency of the location was changed due to an event, potentially. That could be some causation for paranormal events.
Try to take us through that in a little bit more detail, because when we were at the Dighton-Rehoboth Bridge, we had a brief conversation about this as well, and we were touching on that in a great bit of detail. So, let's start from the beginning. Let's say there's an event on a piece of property, if you will, death. We'll keep it simple, right? The most reason for hauntings, and it's a violent death. Somebody gets murdered, maimed, killed from history. Take us through the rest of it. How's it go?
Also, from my understanding, everything has a natural frequency. Everything. Us, everything. So, from there, what if, when something happens, when something that takes a lot of energy, maybe that changes the frequency of that location, or maybe just the event itself has its own frequency, and that's what we're picking up on. Potentially. Is there much proof for it? I don't know. However, I think that would be an interesting explanation. Because I have seen stories where, you hear the stories of spirits thinking that they're in their own time. Whether they're from the 1800s, whether they're from the 1900s. They think they're in their own time.
And just tying in with that too, I mean, what it goes to show is why most apparitions are seen in period clothing.
Which would make sense. So maybe it's not so much as they know they're dead and they're haunting us. Maybe it's they're just living their life.
It's kind of like stuck in a loop.
Kind of like stuck in a loop. They're just living their life thinking life goes on. I mean, let me ask you this. If some guy, I'm not going to name any names here, but some guy with a goatee and really cool rectangular glasses happened to start investigating and sending his co-host into a room and saying, hey, you need to hang out in there alone, but it happens to be your nice farmhouse. How would you react?
I mean, I like kind of going where danger is, though. So, I mean, maybe I'm not the best example of that. Although I do feel on certain shows a certain somebody usually does get picked on a little bit more than others. We're not going to name names.
Sorry. Anywho, maybe to them, they're experiencing things that they consider odd. Maybe they're experiencing us.
Maybe we're haunting them in their minds.
Potentially. I think that's something to consider. Because you have to think, when you try to make contact with a spirit, now granted, we're going to be trying to disprove some things. In the sense of, if there's a rational explanation that we can explain, we're not just going to pretend that didn't, that can't be an explanation.
100%. And while we're on that topic, I definitely want to stress, when it comes to EVP, if you can't clearly definitively state what something is, we don't have a problem telling you what we think something was said, but I'm not going to tell you black and white, like this is the way it went down. You're going to have to allow some sort of opinion of your own to really see if you agree or disagree. we're going to present it in a very factual manner of what we find. And like I said, sometimes it's going to be maybe a lot, and sometimes maybe nothing at all. And I'm okay with that, because either way, we're going to give it our honest go and really investigate the best we can.
I mean, I don't really mean to give too much of a preview for an episode that we'll be making at the warehouse, but I would like to see if we can disprove any of the phenomena that people have brought up. You know, if we can disprove that, if we can figure out rational explanations, I feel like, why wouldn't we? You know? Maybe
Absolutely.
it'll make people have some peace of mind for where they work.
Yeah, I mean, and while we're talking about theory too, like I'd really like to get away from the stigma. I think that just because there's a spirit or an apparition that's appearing, to me, I don't automatically call that a haunting. To me, a haunting is when a spirit does something more malicious. Whereas, you know, just a spirit being there in that presence just could be something as simple as that's where they were in life and they weren't able to move on. Because not every spirit, let's face it, is a negative entity. You know, and we gotta stop necessarily thinking that just because there's ghosts, that it is a haunting. You know.
Let me just ask a little opinion here. If there was a spirit in your home, how might you go ahead and give your family some peace of mind about that?
Anthony,
It
why
would
don't you take a
depend.
stab at that first?
It would depend on whether or not it was noticeable by those other family members.
Let's assume it is.
If it was, I would probably get them out of the house, do an investigation of my own by myself. Probably make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up because I know I'm still living there with everything else that's going on. And then I'd probably try to look into what I can do to possibly help ease the tensions of that. I know personally for myself, I look at myself as being somewhat of a little bit of a spiritualist. I believe in burning sage. I believe in burning different odors to help matters. I believe in stones, crystals. So I mean, I do have a belief in some aspects of that. To touch base and go back a little bit on what you were saying about the different aspects for tone, vibes of how things fall into play. I think there's two different versions of that story. I think that's a high possibility, and I also think there's another possibility where they're aware that they are dead and that they're just stuck and they don't know how to cross over onto the other side. But I also do believe that there are some aspects that we might see, or maybe some of the viewers have seen, where we're just witnessing an event that took place, whether it be just an apparition that goes from one room to the other, but that apparition lived there years or a possible century prior to you, and they're just going through their everyday life almost like a time warp, different dimensional aspect. So I do believe that there are different aspects of how we have to be careful in approaching this and how to look at different things a little bit differently and think more on multi aspects. When you're looking at things, you're not trying to look at it like black and white. You're trying to find that gray lining as well. There's always two sides to a coin, but people fail to remember there's a third side to the edge. So there might be other aspects that we have to look at.
I would like to just point out, if any viewers have any stories of their own, please feel free to share it in the comments. You know I can speak for all of us. We would love to read them, and we'd love to hear more about what you guys have experienced.
Or even more suggestions in maybe local lore or any places you think that might be cool to investigate. Future videos you might like to see. Maybe somebody else hasn't covered it yet. Maybe one of your other favorite paranormal investigators hasn't maybe done a video because maybe it's not as popular, we'll say. Give it to us. We'll check it out. If it's within the means, we'll 100% be willing to check it out. You know? And just touching base on that again, too. I mean, you know, there's a couple of things. You never really want to investigate your own house if you can avoid it. You know, not so much because of a safety aspect, but I mean, I guess partially that, but mostly, you know, if it's where you sleep at night and you start investigating and you start getting evidence of any kind, you're no longer going to feel safe in your safe space, if you will. You're not going to get that good night's sleep anymore because you're going to be sleeping with one eye open. You're going to know there's something there because you found proof because you started digging. Try not to do that. Once again, though, if you got a presence, if you have something there, sometimes you do have to dig a little further and get to the bottom of it, you know. But I also believe that if it's not something that's causing any harm and it's just a presence, that maybe don't poke the bear, so to speak. You know, not every ghost is a bad ghost. Not every, you know, spirit is bad. We don't have to be running around attempting to exorcise things to get them out of our lives just because, you know. Maybe just like a creature in a sense, they're just another being that's in our space. You know, it's like you don't kill every single thing insect-wise that's in your house. Maybe some people do. Some people are really afraid of bugs. I myself am actually afraid of spiders. But also, with that being said, I don't go run around killing every spider I see. Because I do know they serve a good purpose as well. Even though I do try to encourage them out the door. But other than that, you know, yeah, don't investigate where you live unless you can help it, 100%. And if something isn't causing any problems, maybe it doesn't really need to be messed with. You know, just leave it alone.
Can I go back to one thing that you had said?
Absolutely.
About just because the spirit's around doesn't mean it's a haunting. At what point would you consider it a haunting?
At any time where there's a negative implication. It doesn't have to be bodily harm or like harm against your, you know, the stuff in your home or anything like that, or, you know, just anything that's, if it starts causing a disturbance in your day-to-day life, whereas it's hindering you from going about your life living it freely, then I would say we're more at the haunting level, because something's trying to make itself known. Whereas I think a spirit who's just present probably isn't attempting to get you to notice them. I think they're there and you happen to come across them or happen to notice them in some way. But if they're trying to be noticed, it's probably bridging the gap over to more of a malevolent sort of thing, even if it's only something little. You know, so I think it's just subjective too, to everybody's comfort level. You know, I mean, is it rolling a pencil off the table every day that you put a pencil on your countertop or your table? Okay. I mean, do you walk away from a door and it slams in your face? Okay, that's a different story. That's like amping it up a little bit more, you know? That's a little bit more, hey, what's up? I'm here, you know? So it goes by everybody's comfort level, and I think you have to look at that. But I also don't think the answer is always, let's just get rid of it just because. Maybe learn its story first before you take it to the next step. 'Cause maybe sometimes it just wants a very simple thing that you can provide. Maybe they just don't even know they're dead. Maybe they do. I don't know.
That's a good point.
I'm still inexperienced in this, but I can only go by my gut intuition on, you know, what I've seen in the past. So,
back to one other thing, if you feel comfortable sharing, you had said that you like your crystals, like you're into crystal and spiritual energy. If anything, going into these investigations, do you have any advice that can touch on your spiritual side?
Basically just keep a clear head. Try not to allow any negative energy into your being. You really gotta have a mindset locked in knowing what you're getting into. I feel that I'm aware of what I'm getting into doing this. But I mean, you also gotta always just talk, be firm. If you feel you're getting into a situation, if we feel like we're getting into a situation, we all gotta be firm of like, listen, we're just here to investigate. We don't mean any harm. Be nice, introduce yourselves, and just let them know at the end of the night or day or whatever when we're doing of, all right, we're leaving, goodbye. You guys can stay here, but we're just leaving. And usually my understanding from some friends, that does help and keeps things away, but I also understand that there is an aspect where we could get into some hairy situations but those situations could lead us bringing something with us into our personal lives. So trying to be cooperative, almost polite and cordial, could potentially help this or help us along in this investigation that we're going to endure, as well as future investigations. But that's basically the best that I've got for you guys. I do know that we are all going to be looking into a little bit more of how we can protect ourselves if we're getting into a situation that we might be over our heads with. So, but we will also keep you guys informed of what we learn. This way, if you have any investigations you wish to do in your area, you will be able to do it and protect yourself as well, because you don't want to bring anything home with you that definitely does not belong to you or around.
Yeah, I think I definitely have to do a lot more investigation onto, cleansing after the fact.
100%.
One thing that I've seen is just being firm and saying goodbye. Making
Yes.
sure to remember to say, I'm leaving, goodbye, and being firm with your intentions on that. I don't know if that's the one trick, I don't know if there's anything else we can use to protect ourselves.
I don't think there's ever really one thing, right? So, I mean, I'm not opposed at all to multiple methods, if you will. Obviously saying goodbye, we'll make it a point to do that. Anthony has experience with crystals, burning sage, things like that. We'll absolutely encompass that too. Anything we find along the way that might help us prevent something like that from coming home with us. And to echo what he was talking about before, like, honestly, I do believe be nice, that's the main thing. We're trying to learn. We're not really trying to poke the bear. We keep saying that phrase there, but the only time I think you'll ever find me provoking anything is like if it deliberately comes at me, then I might provoke back. But that's just, I think, my natural reaction to some things. I understand if not everybody wants to be around when that moment goes down, but
So, like, am I going to have to tie your gloves when a spirit comes out and tries to fight you? Or, like, what are we talking here? What's the...
Well, we're not doing 10 rounds of bare knuckle boxing, right? But, if I was to get clawed or something by, like, a spirit, I might get a little angry. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I can see some.
And I can't promise that I'm running away. Maybe everybody's natural reaction is to do that, but...
If something like that was to happen, none of us can say that we are not going to be saying some four-letter words in that process as well. Anger naturally comes with being attacked, but I think that we're going to be firm with our intentions. We're not out to do any harm. We're basically just investigating and also looking on a spiritual aspect, if you would, to have a better understanding of these circumstances.
And again, the way I see it is, we're out there to prove if there's something going on, We're trying to get evidence to be able to prove and kind of have in our own files to say, is there something going on? Is there a hoax going on? Is there something more paranormal going on? I think that's the real question that we're trying to get to the bottom of. What's the full story? Or at least part of the story.
I'd like the whole story.
I'd
If
like the whole
possible.
story
Yeah.
too.
But, if possible,
But,
I'd love the whole story.
Not really an open book.
This is true. And things keep changing. I mean, it just seems that as time goes by, still hammering the theory there, it just, as more and more paranormal investigators and so forth are looking into these things, the number of appearances has risen, steadily. I mean, if you look at a chart, I mean, honestly, it's 100% on the climb. As people get more and more interested in the afterlife and spirits and so forth, I mean, more and more people are looking into those things. More and more appearances are happening, more and more events. So I think there's more of that to come.
It's interesting you bring that up. It seems like in the past few years, I don't know if you guys have noticed the same thing, but it seems like in the past few years, people have really been trying to get into their spiritual side. And that's been causing a lot of the idea of energies in our lives.
So one could say we're in a spiritual renaissance of sorts.
Perhaps. Perhaps.
just to touch base again, if there's any other ideas that you, the viewers, have for protecting us or things that we should be doing as we leave a property or an experience, please drop those comments, let us know, and we'll be happy to read and possibly try them out.
Just to plug again, like and subscribe if you like the content you're seeing. Can't say that enough. We appreciate all of you. Anybody taking the time to stop and watch this video, any of our previous ones. This is Wicked New England. John
I'm
Botello,
Anthony?
and I'm Andrew. And we'll catch you on the next one, episode 4. So it's coming at you.